Welcome back to another Disney Movies Ranked and Reviewed. Today I'm coming at you sans glasses because I have some new equipment, including a ring light, and ring lights do not look good with glasses, I am discovering. So, we're gonna have fun while I try to read my script. If you're new here, I would like to extend you a warm welcome, and I hope that you'll press that subscribe button. If you're a returning subscriber, congratulations! You are a true Disney fan. It's true, my channel has that power, but don't look it up. If you do, 1,000 mice will eat your face off. Wow, that was unnecessarily dark. Which is very fitting, because today we're going to talk about the unnecessarily bright and vivacious Robin Hood. Before we start, though, I want to ask you to write your initial thoughts of Robin Hood down in the comments right now. Tell me what you loved or didn't love about Robin Hood as a child. That way, when I say something that really ticks you off, you can have objective proof of your childhood memories. Just remember, I live for your validation. We meet Robin Hood and Little John as they are running away from people who are shooting at them. Actually, I guess they're running away from animals, not people, because all of the people in this movie are animals, but I think you know what I mean.
You know something, Robin, I was just wondering. Are we good guys or bad guys? You know, are robbing the rich to feed the poor?
Rob? That's a naughty word. We never rob. We just sort of borrow a bit from those who can afford it.
I see, Robin Hood, so you subscribe to the Aladdin worldview.
I steal only what I can afford. That's everything.
We then meet King John and his codependent side character, Hiss. And we discover that Hiss hypnotized King Richard into going on to the crusade.
And remember, it was your idea. I hypnotized him and... I know. And sent him off on that crazy crusade.
Which I am kind of glad for, because I was very concerned that our resident good guy was one of the crusaders. Not a fan. Side note here. There were medieval historical reasons on both sides as to why both Muslim countries and Christian countries were warring at the time of the Crusades. But here is my take. And just so you know, I'm only going to talk about the Christian side of this because as a Christian myself, I feel that's the only side I really can legitimately critique. During the Crusades, people were forced to say that they believed in things that they did not believe in. I completely condemn the idea of people being forced to say things that they do not believe for the sake, especially, of saving their lives. In my view, it's completely self-defeating, because if you do not believe, then we kill you, which will, according to what we believe, send you to hell if you are not already a Christian, or we force you to lie about what you believe, therefore sending you to hell because you are lying about what you think. And if you are really just a Christian by name only, then you're really not a Christian anyway. If you're lying about being a Christian, that's not any kind of saving faith. So I don't understand what the purpose of the Crusades was in any way. Power. The purpose was power. It did nothing good for the kingdom of God, and it did nothing good for those who said they believed in Christianity, but really didn't. Not to mention, then you have a whole bunch of people who are only pretending to be Christians so that they can keep their lives. If you believe something very different from me, that is completely fine. I might give you my thoughts about it. I might at one point say, here's another option for you, and I hope that you believe in it. I do hope people believe in Jesus. But I will never force someone to believe exactly the way that I believe so that we could even be friends, much less save somebody's life from being destroyed. I apologize for those who have similar beliefs as me, who have done this and who put this stain on this world. And it's something I really wish had never happened. So, now that I've stepped off my soapbox, where are we? Yes, we were going down. In history, of course. Robin Hood and Little John dress as women. Everyone in power is robbing the rest of the city completely blind.
Rob the poor to feed the rich.
Do you find this to be a boon for your economy, or it doesn't really seem to be very stable to me? The little bunny children are given a bow and arrow and shoot it over the castle wall. We discover there will be a competition for a kiss from Maid Marian. Hiss spies on the proceedings, is caught, and forced to get drunk. Robin Hood is disguised, but then is discovered. Robin is rescued and proposes to marry. The people sing about the phony King of England. Prince John taxes everyone double.
Double the taxes. Triple the
taxes.
Again, is this good for your economy? I'm sincerely asking. King John taxed the heart and soul out of the poor people of Nottingham. Robin Hood steals from the palace while Maid Marian disappears for the rest of the movie. Robin Hood dies. Robin Hood is actually fine. Maid Marian appears just in time to do her duty and be the prize for Robin Hood at the end of the story, as all good boys deserve. And King Richard tells the most British joke I've ever heard.
It appears that I now have an outlaw for an in-law.
The storyline to Robin Hood is great for little kids. It's easy to follow, and while the stakes are actually pretty big, they never feel as weighty as they actually are. Each step of the story is so overblown that it actually kind of discounts how important each scene really is. For instance, when the Honorable Sheriff of Nottingham comes to take out taxes, he takes them from the elderly, the disabled, and a little, very innocent child. This would make me extremely mad in this scene, except for that they make it almost a joke. We see the sheriff bang on a cast and do all kinds of just over-the-top things for cheap laughs. The laughs don't feel earned because it feels as though the Disney writers were not taking this moment seriously. Had the writers actually taken this moment seriously though, it could have really hit you in the feels and made you also laugh. However, the third act of this film does feel a lot more serious and feel as though there are genuine stakes at hand for it. It has a much more serious and weighty tone, and the jokes don't undermine the story. Although every time I watch it, I do have to wonder, where did Maid Marian go during the third act? She only shows up again just in time to get married. It seems like she could have had at least a tiny role in the fight scene. After all, I believe the palace that is burning is the palace that is her home at that point. So it doesn't really make sense why she's not part of the story. I give Robin Hood 8th place out of 21 stories for storyline. It's a bit of a juvenile story, but it makes sense and it's easy to follow without massive amounts of filler, and that's more than I can say for the likes of Peter Pan or Alice in Wonderland. The music is catchy, romantic, and folksy.
Robin Hood and Little John walking through the forest.
It's definitely mostly folksy. There are times when the music is diegetic to the story. For instance, when you hear music during the competition scene, that music is literally supposed to be in the story. When you hear the townspeople sing The Phony King of England, they are actually supposed to be singing that song, as evidenced by King John's henchmen singing that same song in the story later.
It's a big hit.
I don't think that we've seen that recently, and I do find it very fascinating. And as I look back on this music, I think the Disney company did something a little bit different and creative with this music. It's not my favorite sound for the Disney movies, and it's not like each piece sticks with you forever, but the music of this movie is definitely worthy of kudos. I give Robin Hood 7th place out of 21 movies for music. Once again, the title animation is terrible in this movie. It's just animation that we will see later, reproduced and set atop a matte background. And with that very scene, we from the very beginning set the mood for this entire movie. And we set up the entire problem with this animation. I thought that the Aristocats had a lot of somewhat poorly made animation. But if you thought the Aristocats had some poorly made animation, you ain't seen nothing yet. This animation is reused the same scenes over and over and over again for Robin Hood. Every scene that includes more than 5 animals feels as though it's been reproduced from an earlier scene. Every time I see the army marching, it's always reused animation. Every time the children look happy or they're laughing, it's reused animation also. Just smack a new background on it and call it a new animation, Martha. Them city slickers will never know. It almost makes me wonder though if the Disney animators had a basic model for all the anthropomorphic animals that they were going to use, and they would just put them all on a page. They'd put all the models on a page and just maybe change a bow or something and call it a new piece of animation. That way it didn't smack of reuse too much, even though it still smacks an awful lot of reuse. And even when the animation is original in this movie, it still smacks of a lot of laziness. At this point, it seemed that the laziness was very normalized, which kind of makes sense as to why this is the Bronze Age. For instance, check out this scene.
When our elusive hero tries to rescue the corpulent cleric, my men will be ready. Ha ha!
Did you see it? Check it out again.
My men will be ready. Ha ha!
Did you see it that time? Right there, when the lightning strikes, Prince John goes completely still. He just goes into the freeze pose while the lightning strikes in the distance. That is a very cheap way to animate, and it's a very crappy way to animate, because it looks cheap too. There's even a scene that has clearly been used before, but now that scene has been zoomed in, so even the lines that the animators drew are now much, much thicker. You can tell very clearly that it was just simply zoomed in and reused again in a different position. It makes it feel obviously cheap and as though the animators really didn't care for this movie at all. And I'm sorry if I'm ruining any of your childhoods, but objectivity. Every scene of this movie feels lazy. Each one feels like someone behind the scenes just said, well, we're making this movie for 5-year-olds anyway, so it's okay if most of the animation is just repeated. As long as the kids have a good story and are reasonably okay, we'll make money. So I guess Disney really hasn't changed a whole lot in the last 40 years, have they? However, I guess I will try to find something nice to say about the animation in this movie. I like the animation choice of King John's crown. I like how the animators chose to make it bigger as to show that it's really King Richard's crown and it's falling off of his head because it's not really his royal place to begin with. That, I think, was a very creative choice that also informed who this character is. I also like the backgrounds. I think the backgrounds look very much like European storybook backgrounds, and they are beautiful. But I give Robin Hood's animation 16th place out of 21 movies so far. Also within this movie, characters are remarkably well developed. King John is obviously a Freudian nightmare, being equal parts obsessed with his mommy and obsessed with his snake. Yes, by that I mean the obvious double entendre. He's also an utter coward who subjugates those who have less power than he has and makes them do his dirty work for him.
Squeeze every last drop out of those insolent musical peasants.
Robin Hood is a socialist and Little John is probably a centrist Democrat.
Sort of borrow a bit from those who can afford it.
The kids all have small but distinct personalities, except for the littlest one who makes up for it by being just plain adorable. Maid Marian is a sexy lamp who wants 12 children, so barefoot and pregnant it is. Off to the bedroom we go. The chicken! The chicken is probably my favorite part of any movie that I've ever seen.
Seize the fat one!
I love this fat chicken. She is my favorite.
Long live King Richard!
Please be my friend. The romance between Robin and Marian is far less forced than it was between the two leads of the Aristocats. And Friar Tuck is not just a passively saintly man, but he can be pushed too far, and he protects those who are less fortunate than he is. And because of that, I love him. All these characters have very simple personality traits, but for this time in Disney's history, I'm surprised to see even this amount of attention to character development. The Crusades are also subtly framed here as something that was a very bad thing, both in the West and abroad, and I respect that a lot about this movie. Basically, I love the characters in this movie far more than I thought I would. These character developments really aren't deep, but they match and even succeed at times the depth of the story that is being told. So I give Robin Hood 7th place out of 21 movies reviewed so far. This movie only has one instance of noticeable multiplane use, and multiplane use really isn't even considered technology at this point. Animation is reused both from this movie and from other animations ranging as far back as Snow White. It's like the animators just wanted to do as little work for this movie as possible. This movie is nothing if not repetitive. So I give it 21st place out of 21 movies. Overall, Robin Hood is a surprisingly better movie than I remembered. It has a fun, although juvenile storyline, and its music does something a bit new and refreshing. The experience is great, despite the animation being subpar at best. Even though I really do like this movie overall, on an objective level, because of the animation being not so great, I give it 13th place out of 21 movies reviewed so far. Thank you for joining us today for our 21st review. Tell me what your favorite part of Robin Hood is below in the comments. I want to hear from you, and I promise that I read every one of the comments that you guys leave me. I generally reply to every one of them too. Thank you again for joining today, and I'll see you again soon.